You're listening to Arise, the podcast that teaches you how to live your life with purpose and confidence. I'm your host, Donna Cherie. Let's get into today's show. Arise. What's up, overcomers? Welcome back to another episode of Arise. I'm your host, Donna Cherie, and I'm so excited that you're listening to today's episode. Today, I have a special guest. Her name is Coach Jennifer Shook, and I am so excited to just have this conversation with her. So welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Certainly. So tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So my name's Jennifer Shook. I am 49 years old. I'm married to Scotty. We've just celebrated our 18th wedding anniversary a couple weeks ago. I have a daughter, Jordan, who's 28 and beautiful and just a joy to all of our family. And just a little bit about me. I grew up in the Midwest. Actually, I didn't grow up in Texas where I'm at now, but I love Texas. I got to Texas as soon as I can. That's what they always say. But I grew up in Indiana and grew up in a Christian home. Had a wonderful family, a safe and secure, loving home. I learned about Jesus from a very young age. It was just always a part of my life. I moved to Texas when I was 16, and when I was 19, got pregnant with my daughter, was a single mom for a while. So went through a lot of things, just hard things, difficult things. Met my husband when my daughter was 5 years old, and he was actually in prison at the time. And that's a whole nother story, right? But it's definitely a faith journey. When I met him in 2000, I had no idea it was going to be 8.5 years later when he came home from prison. But he met Jesus in prison. And so we're just walking that faith journey together and learning and growing. And when he came home in 2009, we were both just excited and, ready to live life together out here. And we had waited so long and watched God do so many miraculous things. And so it was awesome. And so he had been sober for 17 years, got sober in prison, actually. And then in 2018, he relapsed. And so that's where my story begins to change. And, God did a completely different work in me, so many things that I've learned and grown and changed. And I never experienced addiction before until 2018 with my husband. And so in 2019, I got my certification in life coaching, and I knew I wanted to help women. I knew I wanted to speak into women's lives. It's something that I always loved doing. I loved leading Bible studies at my church. It was just, I knew that I had this natural gifting to ask questions. I loved asking questions. And so, I knew that was something that I wanted to do, but it just wasn't the right time yet because there was so much chaos going on in my life. And I was not at a place where I could coach other people because I was being coached during that time, So, but I knew that the timing would come. And that time came about a year ago when I started really helping women and coaching women and investing in them. And I love it. It's been a wonderful journey.
Awesome. And what gave you the courage to step out and get your certification and start coaching women? Because I mean, you said you had to be coached and, go through your own healing process, and maybe some other things, but, what gave you the courage to step out and do it?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because last year, right around this time, I actually was on a session with my own coach. I was doing my own healing with her, and um, we were just talking about how you just got to start, right? And I knew that God had poured so much into me and had changed me over the last 6 years of this journey with my husband and addiction and recovery and all of that. And so I knew that I had knowledge and wisdom to pour out, but yet at the same time, it was scary because um, I still was kind of living in that place of, well, I'm not sure what's going to happen, God. Like, what if my husband relapses again? What am I going to be dealing with tomorrow? What if I can't handle it? Um, all of those things were just going through my mind, but me and my coach just we were praying and talking, and God just said, just start. And he gave me a friend of mine who she would call me periodically, and she knew that I had my life coaching certification, and she would just call and say, hey, let's do some coaching. I need some coaching, And so God put her name on my mind and said, just start with her, right? And so that same day she called me and actually asked me, hey, when are you going to be starting your coaching? And so I'm like, okay, God, you can't make it any more clear than this. So I just told her, hey, let's just jump in. Let's just do it. This might be messy, but let's just schedule our first call and do it. So she was the very first woman that I started coaching. And it was just so beautiful to be able to work with her and kind of figure it out together along the way. And I'm still coaching with her, and it's been a beautiful journey. So yeah, just you just have to start, right? You just have to start and do it scared.
Wow. That is so cool. And God is just so awesome. And I just think about like, yeah, you just start because sometimes we just complicate and overthink so many things. And I've talked to so many people over the years who said, oh, God told me to do this, or he told me to do that, he showed me this, but yet they're not walking in it. But it's you really all you have to do is just get started and just thinking about the fact that your friend called you, the person that you knew called you, and you went from there. Because I think too, sometimes we can even hesitate if it's somebody we know, how are they going
Right.
to think about us, and all those things, but just get started.
Yeah. Yeah. Just start, right? Practice is the best it's the best training, just jumping in and diving in and doing what you I knew that God was calling me to do it. I knew that he had gifted me. I knew that I loved doing stuff like that. It was just I really had to overcome my own fears of this new part of my story because I was used to sharing my story before my husband relapsed. I was used to that story. I knew it well. I could share it, but now we had all of these new things, all of the yucky stuff, the pain and the heartache. And I was a different person, and I wasn't really sure how to even share this new part of my story, But again, like God told me through another coaching session of my own, just to, like, my coach asked me, she said, were you always really good at sharing your story before the relapse? And I said, well, no, I had to practice, like at first I was scared to death. Even back then, like it just took practice over time, like talking to people and sharing. And so, no, of course not. So that was a great reminder that it was going to be the same this time. You just have to start and share and practice, and it will become easier each time I do it. So that was a really great eye-opening conversation for me with her.
And how would you say sharing this part of your story has helped you to become a better coach or even, just a better wife or a better person?
Yeah. I truly believe that sharing the journey is part of the healing process. And, not, I mean, there was a time when I wasn't sharing it openly like this. There was a time when I was, there were a few people that were around me that God had put in my life to help me and pray for me and be with me and just pour life into me and pour truth into me. And so there was definitely a part of the journey where it was just me and Jesus and being still and learning and growing. But I knew there would come a time when I would start sharing because I had seen the power of a testimony in my own life. Like me and my husband used to go into prisons and share our story. And, he would give his testimony at different churches and recovery groups. And so that was so much a part of our life. I knew how powerful it was. And so I knew that there was going to come a time again when we would do that. And when I would do it on my own, even. And I know there's a time coming for us both to do that together again. And so um, God has put people in my path, and this is how he does it, right? Like the things that we go through, he puts people in our path that need to hear our story. Like they show up, there they are. We've gone through what they're in right now, and we can share wisdom, we can share what we did, we can share how God helped us. And so God started doing that with me, and me just being able to um, share my journey, the good, the bad, the ugly, the painful, what God has taught me, just talking about it, bringing it into the light, right? It's so powerful. And one of my favorite verses in Revelations talks about that, how the enemy is overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So I know that every time I speak what God has done for me, the enemy is being defeated, right? And I love that. That's part of the God makes something beautiful out of our ashes, beauty for ashes, right? And so if I can't share my story with somebody else and help somebody else, then what's the point? Like, why did I go through all of that if I can't help somebody? And so, yeah, that's how I look at that.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so true. And as you mentioned, like the more that we do it, the freer we become. Well, I know that I've experienced this as well. Like the more I shared my testimony, the more freer I get, and no one can try to, demise it or use it against me because God has set me free. And it
Yeah.
just opens and unlocks doors for other people to be able to share their stories as well and empower them. So,
Yes. Yes.
yes.
I definitely found that if I'm vulnerable and share things that I may not want to share, it opens the door for other people to be vulnerable and share what they're going through, even shameful things, painful things, that we really don't want to talk about. And it's hard to talk about addiction. It's hard to talk about the things that happen when you're living in that. It's not fun. And so, but I've seen the more I open up and share my story, my journey, it helps others to open up.
Absolutely. And so
Yeah.
when you're working with clients, how do you integrate faith-based principles into your coaching practices when you're dealing with clients who may have similar struggles or, wanting to share their stories?
Yeah. It's everything. It's a part of everything I do, really. Like I can't not share it because I'm where I am today because of Jesus. I am where I am today because of the miracles he's done in my life and my husband and my marriage. And so it just naturally is going to flow from my story, and God, the people, the women that God brings to me, there's already that connection, there's already a Jesus connection, which is amazing. And it doesn't mean we're in the same spot. Like, that it's not that, there's still growth for these women that he's bringing to me. And that's part of um, my job, that I get to just share how God has really shown me over the last 6 years what is true about me and what is not. That it's all about identity. That's the thing that I love focusing on. That's the journey that I've been on with Jesus. And so, helping women find their true identity in Christ and being able to identify those things that, that's not really true about me. Even if I've believed it my whole life, like, no, that's not true. Or these are the things that are true about me. This is what God said, who God says that I am. This is who God really is. Like there, even before my husband relapsed, I was on that journey of identity. I think we all are, right? We are all on this journey of who am I? Who does God say I am? Do I have a purpose? Learning the truth about God's character and who he truly is, like it's so important. And for me, growing up in the church, there were even some religious things that I really had to have um, taken off of me, like shake it off. Like there were some things that I believed that just were not true. And so I'm so thankful that God helped me to become freer in my own relationship with him. And so that's a big part of what I do in my coaching. And even one of the things that I feel like is a little different about what I do is it's what I experienced with my own coach. We would talk just like this, she would ask me questions, we would talk through things, but we also did what's called some listening prayer or freedom prayer, where we just pray and we invite Jesus into our conversation. We ask Jesus questions. He shows me things. He'll bring up a memory maybe that needs to be healed. And so I was experiencing that with my coach over these last 6 years. And that was a game changer for me. It brought me so much healing. I would not be where I'm at today without that type of ministry in my life. And so now I get to do that with the women that I'm working with, and so sometimes maybe we're just talking, sometimes we're just praying, sometimes it's both, I let God lead. But it's really a beautiful thing when you see Jesus show up for these women. And Jesus can take you right to the root of something. He knows exactly where those roots are that we need to deal with, right? He knows where the wound started. He knows where the lie started. And so he can take us there. And we don't even have to try that hard. It just happens because he does all the work, and he knows how to talk to us and get our attention. So I love that. I love that part of the coaching, because you just never know what he's going to say. You never know what he's going to do. Um, I just had a client the other day say to me, "Wow, I wasn't expecting that," and I smiled because I'm like, I know, I would say that after all of my sessions too. Like, you just never know what Jesus is going to show you, but it's never to hurt us. It's never to re-traumatize us. It's like Jesus isn't going to bring something up to add guilt or shame to us. If he's bringing it up, then he's going to bring it up to heal us. And just that's who he is. So anyway, that's what I love. I love that part of coaching with women.
Awesome. I love that. And I love what you shared, Jennifer. And I think that it's so important, especially if you believe in Jesus Christ and if you are seeking a life coach, that it should be
Yes.
someone who is Holy Spirit filled and led. And I truly believe that is the difference, in who we can rely on when we are coaching individuals to help them get to the root of issues so that they can move forward, learn their identity and just walk in the freedom that God has for them. Um, it's so important and it's such a jewel to have to be able to have a coach who is just spirit led by the Bible, and who will lead people with the heart of Jesus. So
Amen. I agree. I've experienced it in my own life, and I can't imagine not having that now.
yeah, yeah. I love that. Just coming in praying, not even because that is a tool as well. Prayer is a tool. It's not just about asking powerful questions, but being led by the Holy Spirit. Is it time to pray? Is it time to worship with that client? Is it time to speak into their lives, and reaffirm them or go to a Bible verse? Like that is our toolbox as well, and not just what we've learned in the book.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. I love that.
Yeah. So, what are some strategies or advice you offer to clients who might be supporting loved ones going through addiction or recovery?
Yeah. Um, oh, that is such a good question. Um, the very first thing is you have to have your own support. You've got to get help for yourself. And it took me a while to learn that because in my own journey with my husband, I was such a rescuer. That was, part of my codependent nature was just when he relapsed, I went into, okay, well, we got to get you help. We got to figure out who's your counselor going to be. What are you going to do? What's your plan? Like my focus was so much on him. And honestly, it was that way for probably the first couple years of this journey. It took, it took a lot. It took me coming to a really painful place. And it was, my husband had gone to um, about a 21-day inpatient rehab. And I had put a lot of hope in that, okay, this is the answer. This is it. God, you're going to fix him. He's going to come out. We're going to do this thing. And he came out and he was okay for a little bit, but then he relapsed again 30 days later. So that at that point, I was like, okay, God, I've tried it all. I have I've tried to be really, really kind to him. I've tried to be mean, like my anger, like, okay, I'm gonna be mean and angry. I'm gonna be loud and just say whatever I want to say. Or I tried being silent and quiet and just like backing off, and none of that stuff worked. None of it worked. And
Hmm.
so I finally realized, okay, I can't fix him. I can't do this for him. I can't rescue him. I'm not his rescuer. It's not my job. So that was when I went to my first Al Anon meeting and I was desperate. I walked in there like, I don't know what to do. I feel like a crazy person. I've never lived through this before. I'm like constantly wondering, where is he at? What's he doing? I'd never had peace. Um, I was walking on eggshells every day, wondering what's going to happen today. I would wake up every day. What am I going to have to deal with today? And I hated that feeling. And so walking into Al-Anon, which is for families of alcoholics, I started to listen to these people's stories and it was so validating. You feel like, okay, I'm not so crazy. They're experiencing this too. These women are doing some of the same things that I've done. Um, and so just listening, that first night when I went, I felt so much peace. And I'm like, okay, God, this is what I need. And I really dove into that program. I started going to meetings like twice a week. I got a sponsor. I started working the steps. Um, and it was so helpful because that really, like after my husband got out of rehab that time, it really got worse. Like he got worse after rehab. And I
Hmm.
wasn't expecting that. But that led me on my own. It started the journey for me of really focusing on my own needs, focusing on my own issues, realizing that, okay, a lot of people, family members that go to recovery meetings, we go there with this idea of, okay, you're going to help me fix my loved one because
Hmm.
somebody here knows how to fix them, right? Everybody comes in that way. And then after you go for a while, you realize, oh, we can't fix them. We've actually got some issues that we've got to work on here. And so I started to realize that, like, okay, God, you're going to start showing me things about myself that are not okay, that really started way before I even met my husband, like God was after those places in my heart that needed to be healed. And it just so happened that they came out in the story of my husband's addiction. But they didn't start in my husband's addiction. They started a long time ago. And so that is my first piece of advice is get help for yourself. Find support. I needed those recovery groups to listen and to feel like I wasn't alone and to feel like I wasn't crazy and to have hope that there is hope here. There's hope in Jesus, number one, but there's hope in that listening to stories of overcomers and people that have made it through and their husband is sober and they're doing well. So like all of that mattered. And then just, I was working one-on-one with my own coach. Every month I would have my sessions, and there was a lot of healing happening there. So that's important, And I hate to say this, but like I was very resistant to help before all of this. My husband even asked me to go to counseling long before he ever relapsed. He had asked me one time if, maybe we should go to counseling to work on some things. And I told him no. I'm like, oh man, looking back, I wish I would have done something different there, but I was scared. I didn't like talking about my own feelings. I hated to
Mhm.
cry in front of people. No, I hated that. But, out of my own pain, I realized, okay, I've got to get help. I can't do this on my own. I need people in my life who also are praying for me and who can speak life. I learned that not everybody needs to know my story. I have a wonderful group of a community of friends and people that loved me, loved Scotty, loved us, but that doesn't mean that every single one of them had to know every detail of my life and what was going on, because I realized that I didn't have energy for that. I was so overwhelmed with my own life on a daily basis that when people would text me or call me to check in, say, "Hey, how are you doing? How's Scotty?" I really had to minimize that. I had to minimize those people that I was communicating with because it was too much. So I kept two or three people very close that knew what was going on, pretty much everything going on in our lives. And and that was it. I couldn't talk to everybody about everything because it just sucked the life out of me and I didn't have that energy. So choosing maybe even just one person who God puts in your life to walk with you, somebody who believes in you and what I wasn't ready to give up on my marriage, so I needed people around me that were going to be supportive in that, who were going to pour life into me but also would speak truth to me too and not just tell me what I wanted to hear. Um so yeah, I that's so important. The people, God put people around me that were going to help me on this journey because I could not do it alone at all. Nobody can do this alone. We all need help.
Yes. In so many ways, we all need help. So true.
Yes.
And you've kind of this kind of leads into my next question, some of what you shared about, finding somebody you could trust and um just like not telling everyone your story, but I still want to ask you this question that is, how do you balance your own self-care and well-being while still being supportive to your husband while he was going through recovery, and if that's something, a continued journey that he's still on?
Yeah. Yeah. That is, that's so hard to do. Because like I said in the beginning, it was all about him and getting him help and fixing him. But what I learned was that I wanted him to be fixed so I wouldn't feel that pain. I didn't want to have to face the pain of what I was experiencing with his addiction. And so once I realized I needed to take care of me, and that I was important too, and that my needs mattered, it just, then it became really important. So for me, it looked like my coaching was a big part of my self care. Doing things for myself, like getting a massage, every once in a while, because the stress really does something to the body too. And I was experiencing a lot of pain just physically because of all the stress. And so doing things that would just allow me to rest. Um, I thankfully I wasn't working full time when all of this was going on, so I did have time in my schedule to just to be, spending time with Jesus was important to me. Journaling all my thoughts, and even planning fun things. Like I needed to laugh and I needed to have fun with friends and not just always focus on the problems. like and so making fun a part of the journey was important to me. And so I think it was a process of learning how to balance that for me. It didn't come natural to me because I was so focused on him and he wasn't even doing anything to help himself anyway in and during that part of the process. Like we were going to counseling together. That was one thing we did together, but he wasn't in recovery. He wasn't sober. He wasn't really going to meetings. Now, over the past year, he's been sober about a year, and we've been in the process of healing and restoration and just learning what life looks like now and what our marriage looks like now. We do go to a recovery meeting together, which is a really important thing for both of us. It's a mixed meeting, so there's family members and there's addicts, and so I think it's really cool because both sides of the story get to hear each other, and that's really important. So that's a part of our recovery together. And then learning just to let him manage his own recovery. That was a huge thing for me. And it was hard to let go. Um, because I wanted to offer up all of my wonderful ideas to him, right? Like, hey, maybe you should do this, and maybe you should do that. Um, but I've learned, instead of like just telling him what to do and telling him what I think he should do, to ask him questions, or like, hey, what are you going to do for this? Or what do you want your recovery to look like? So my process has been stepping out of that control and management mode and just letting him be his own person. He's an adult. He has to learn how to manage himself too, just like I do, right? And that is much easier said than done. But it's been really good for us, and where I get to focus more on myself and what I need, and what's important for me. And of course, we still talk about it. We communicate with each other, but it's different now. It's not me trying to make sure he's doing all the right things and checking everything off the list. He gets to make his own list. I'm not making the list for him. He's coming up with what he feels he needs for his recovery, and I'm coming up with what I need, and we get to share it together and communicate about it. Yeah, so balancing all of that, man, that's hard, and it's a journey, really. It's a learning process, and I feel like I'm still learning it, but I've definitely come a long way.
What are some of your hopes and plans for the future of your family, your marriage, and your coaching practice?
Oh, yes. Um, I I'm just so thankful that we're where we're at, honestly, to like, looking back, my hope all along was that Scotty would get sober, that our marriage would be redeemed and saved. And God has done so many amazing things in us. And so now getting to look forward and actually um, getting to um, pray about our future together, and what do we want that to look like, and a vision for our marriage. And so getting back into ministry together, and even prison ministry is a big part of that. Um, that is something that we are diving back into, that we both love, and we know God has called us to. Um, Sharing our story together, but also separately. I'm just I look forward to God continuing to bring me women to my coaching business that are either stuck in their own identity issues, maybe not even dealing with addiction, because identity can show up in so many different ways. But what seems to be happening is God's bringing me a lot of women who are, they're married and struggling with so many codependent issues, and, things that I've dealt with, and they want freedom. And some of the women coming to me are dealing with addiction issues. And so I just, my hopes with all of that is just to continue sharing my story with them, and helping women gain freedom, and gain purpose, and know that there's so much more to their lives and their stories than just being a wife or just being a mom. Like, and those things are so important, but there's also there's other things that God has for us, right? Like, just as women, as daughters of the King, like, God has plans and good plans in store for us. And what are those things? And so helping women discover those things, I love it. It brings me so much passion and excitement. Um, so yeah, I just want to do more of that.
Awesome. That's great. And I know that God will give you the desires of your heart for your family. for your life, your marriage, your business, and everything that you put your hand to.
Yes,
And
amen.
what's one word of encouragement that you like to leave with the audience today?
Um, I I think one word I would leave is just to know that you get to choose. You get to choose what you want to do with your life. You get to choose if you're in a situation like mine where you're facing hard things and maybe people are coming at you, people are going to come at you with a lot of opinions and their own ideas of what we should do, right? And it's most of the time it comes from a good place because people care and they love us. But I learned that I am the only one who has to live my life. I'm the only one living my life. I'm the only one who has to deal with my choices, good or bad. And so um, that's my encouragement is to know that whatever you choose, God is going to be with you in the journey. God is going to help you in the journey. He's going to put people around you to encourage you and lift you up and pray for you. And on that journey too, he's gonna show you who you were always meant to be, you know. And so make your choices for yourself, not for anybody else, because it's for me personally, it was so hard to kind of because I could be a people pleaser and I wanted to please people and make people happy. And so that's hard when you're dealing with addiction. It's hard when you're dealing with a lot of things. So learning to honor my own voice, learning to honor my own wants and needs, and to know that it was okay and that this is my journey and I'm learning and God's helping me. Um, that was important, you know. I'm the only one living this life, so I get to choose. And there's just I've learned that I don't get to judge other people's stories. You know, like it's so easy for me to say, oh, well, I wouldn't do that if I was in their situation. I would do it so different, you know, but how do I know what I would do unless I'm living it? I don't know. Like probably before this relapse with my husband, I would have said all kinds of things to people like given all kinds of advice like, oh, well, no, if he does that, you need to leave or, you know, but like now that I've lived this and I've actually watched myself do things that I never thought I would do, you know, and stick around longer than I ever thought I would stick around when things were really bad. Like, no, there's no judgment. It's just, you know, have grace for today. I have grace for today. I get to live one day at a time, and Jesus is going to help me along the way.
Amen. Amen. So remember that to the person who's listening, that you get to choose. You get one life to live on earth, and just
Yes.
you get to choose how you live your life, and hopefully that's with Jesus Christ. So thank you for that,
Amen.
Jennifer. Where can people stay in contact with you in the internet streets?
I have a website, jennifershook.com, and people can contact me through there. I would love to chat with any woman who um, feels like this resonates with them or they have questions or, you know, just to even pray together.
Awesome. Awesome. So that information will be in the show notes for you all. Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. I thank God for you, and I speak much peace and blessings over you, your family, and your business. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, guys. Until next time. Ciao. Hey, Overcomers. Thanks for tuning in. For more information, head on over to DonnaCherie.com. If you want to find me online, I'm at I am Donna Cherie on Instagram and Facebook. And of course, if you love the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.